John, you know what mics are hot means, right? Like, you just start giggling over it because I guess Nick was doing a dance behind the scenes.
Accurate.
I was. It's a wonderful dance. It's a soccer over there. Labor Day dance, right? It's Labor Day, right? Is that what it is?
I think so.
Labor
We're not
Day.
supposed to be working today, guys. I don't know what's happening here. We're not supposed to be working.
We got
and
special
here we are.
guests, man. We
That
got like
is
the
true.
Brady Bunch set up on the Twitch.
Yes.
That's true. So we have a couple of guests today, as you can see. Gentlemen, please introduce yourselves before we get into the rest of the gang here.
All right, so I'm Braden Metters. I'm here with Sapoon from the Football Academy podcast. We specialize in Premier League with a look at kind of the sports betting angle. So it's a little different than kind of just your typical review preview type show. We have a little bit different slant at it. So that's me. I'll let Sapoon take it from there.
Hey there. As Braden introduced, we specialized in Premier League previews and reviews with a betting angle, and we're going to try to give you guys the best up-to-date information for what might happen in a very unique upcoming Premier League season, having seen none of the preseason games.
The betting
And as you
angle
can
will
see,
go
we have
over here
Jason
for
and John
sure.
with us as well.
Hola.
So, guys, you're going to help me make some money? I need a little extra money. You know, the power bill got a little steep this month, you know.
All our views are our own, but we can help you out there.
Okay, good. I think it's important to know these things, right? I mean, you know, for entertainment purposes only.
Of course.
And, we do not
Juice boxes.
condone,
Juice boxes. Always juice boxes.
Juice, you know, anything outside of juice boxes being exchanged, please remember that any such wagers are done at your own risk and strictly for entertainment purposes only. Okay, let's go into the show. The season is right around the corner. We have virtually no recent way of looking at how this season's going to go because of the COVID, the late push to the end of the season, how it's going to look going forward with player wear and tear. We're already seeing some of this in the international break. Gentlemen, from what you're seeing, what your ideas are, what can we expect from a league that is fast and physical like the Prem going forward?
So I'll start off. I think this is a wide open league this year. I think we all kind of maybe got lulled into thinking that Liverpool were so far ahead of everyone last year when they just kind of ran away with the league, and I expect that to come back down a little bit and for at least it to be a lot closer title race. I think there's a lot of teams. I mean, obviously we have Chelsea. Who knows what they're going to do? A lot of teams that you expect to be better, and I think, again, when you have the short off season, short runway in from the preseason, I think there's a lot of different things that can happen specifically this year as compared to maybe some other years.
Sapoon, with the window still open, it's going to get kind of weird with, 4 or 5 games before the window closes, and we had a big one today. Let's start there. James Rodriguez, Everton. What do you think he does for that squad?
I mean, I think he's very much an upgrade on what Kofi Sigurdsson provided, and I think both of them, it would be an interesting situation to see how James does. They're still in for Decore, from what I know, for Everton, what Fabrizio Romano said. And I think the signing that is really going to make the difference for Everton is going to be Allen. I think Ancelotti knows him. I think he is a player that they really needed. And Goodison Park is always a tough place to go for all the big teams. And I very much expect Everton to kind of pull off some results that otherwise would be considered shocking. I think especially for the developing teams like an Arsenal, United's, Chelsea's, they could very much go there and struggle. But Everton is a team that you kind of need to keep an eye out on. But again, I think James Rodriguez as a name is going to kind of, I think I saw it that it sent a lot of shockwaves through a lot of people that he ended up at Everton. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does in the Premier League, because it's been a very interesting career for him, to say the least. And all the hopes of from the 2014 World Cup onward hasn't done as good as people would have thought. But I think at Everton, with Carlo Ancelotti absolutely loves the player as well. So I think they're building something along with Richarlison and the team that had already been there. So if they can start to figure some stuff out, they could be a problem for quite a few of the teams.
Braden, it's a good piece of business by Everton. You're looking just north of £20 million to bring Hamas in. I think that a full season for Everton with Carlo Ancelotti can do them great favors. A healthy Richarlison can also have him for more of the grid than you did last year. I think that you've got some promise here with Richarlison and Hamas for Everton, and it's been one of the teams that in our Soccer Over There discussions we've had in the past, just kind of before we got into the season, we had the eyebrow raised about what we think Everton could be here in 2020-2021.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting what they could be. And they're one of the teams that I look at and you say, maybe last year's results aren't going to carry over to this year. And we kind of tend to think of teams being around where they were last year as a starting point for our predictions a year ahead. And I think Everton, you just kind of throw that out. There's a lot of really good pieces there. You adding James, the Richarlison, as you mentioned, but you got Dean there at left back as well. And I really highly rate him as another attacking piece there. I think I would like to see them. Allen will be a good piece in the midfield and the holding. Maybe someone who's a little bit more of a physical presence there would be helpful for them as well. But I think they look to take a step up, and I think it'll be some up, some down for them this year. But I think they're going to be a team that's going to challenge the big boys when they go to play.
Nick, transfer questions for the guys? We can't hear you, Nick.
You're Nick.
I'm trying to be polite here. Like at my house back here behind this wall, it is an absolute madhouse. And so I try to protect you guys and protect the listeners from hearing what may sound like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre going on in the background. No. With James, we've seen so much through his career. I know I spent about a week on Twitter just getting massacred because I said that James needed to just go to MLS, maximize his earning potential, maximize the marketing potential. Obviously, there was a lot of pushback on that. But for someone who, though he has been with big teams, has not found himself in the starting 11 consistently, I think this is the year and maybe the last chance for James in a top flight league where he could say, all right, I'm in the starting 11. This is my spot. You're going to have to rip it from me. Seems like he's kind of gravitated toward the bench and supporting roles in the past few years.
I guess I'll go first with that. I think as far as Everton as a team goes, James Rodriguez could be the X factor kind of a signing that kind of brings in that attitude with him because he is capable of scoring some absolute beauties out there. And I think that's where Everton hasn't had a player like that in a very long time. So he could add that. But again, I have never been the biggest fan of James Rodriguez. So I will make a very controversial statement and just go ahead and say that, I don't think they're going to finish top 7 because you have the traditional big 6 and you have Wolverhampton Wanderers, in my eyes, who are going to take the 7 spots. And even Leicester, I don't think they're at ahead of Leicester in terms of where the team is at. So I am very intrigued to see what Everton does and where the next steps are, because I think that with Pickford in goal, I loved him for what he did for England in 2018, but I genuinely don't think he's a great number 1 goalkeeper for a club like Everton who are trying to have higher ambitions. So I think overall, as great as the window has been for them, they look like a side that still need a couple more players to really consistently make some noise the way a Wolverhampton Wanderers has over the last couple of seasons.
Sapoon, I'm going to keep it with you because we talked about this when I was on with you guys. Jadon Sancho and Manchester United, it doesn't look like it's happening. Should they change course and go after somebody else, or is Donny van de Beek going to be enough to take Manchester United into a solid top 4 spot?
I personally think when it comes down to Jadon Sancho, it's a deal that probably happens at the very end of the window because United have been notorious with ever since Woodward's come in to go out and do it. But I would honestly like to see United go and invest that money in other positions. I think there is a huge ask for a left back right now, and we're getting linked with left back, so we'll see how that goes. And on top of that, I think you need a center midfielder to go along with Pogba and Bruno. And as great a signing as Van de Beek is, I think you need a Matic replacement, and maybe you look at somebody like David Brooks who can come in, deputize Mason Greenwood out on the right. So I think for United, they need to start making moves soon enough, one way or the other. And personally, I would like to see the money go towards the more bigger signings in terms of in the bigger positional needs, then spend 120 million on a Jadon Sancho in this window. And that's just, I think a lot of United fans don't want that. They want the big signing. But I don't think if signing Jadon Sancho necessarily improves us as much as people think it's going to.
All right, Braden, let me give you another team that I've kind of got my eye on. And they are literally, with Marina Granovskaya, she's basically going like this when it comes to every single transaction that's coming across the board. So let's get into Chelsea here for a second. Linked to Edouard Mendy, the keeper from Rennes, and the connection is there with Petr Cech from his past. If this deal comes to pass, I'm hearing £20 million. They will have spent in this offseason £250 million in bringing folks in. Obviously, you can offset that with your transactions with Hazard and Morata. But when you get that much money, when you bring in all of these guys, when you might be bringing in more guys, and Chelsea has been known to have a roster of 55 or 60 guys, and they'll throw them and stash them and just kind of loan them out to other places. Who are you looking at? Is the Mendy thing something that you're still keeping an eye on for goalkeeper for Chelsea? Who might be heading on the out if this guy comes in? What are you looking at with Chelsea here?
Yeah, so if you look at Chelsea and their keeper situation last year, I mean they very heavily underperformed their defensive XG metrics, and you can almost pin that directly on Kepa, and like some of his advanced metrics are just really poor. So if Mendy just comes in and is average, I think it really helps Chelsea a lot, and in that particular area. So I think that's going to be where they pursue, and I think that they don't necessarily need a world beater there. I think they just need kind of someone who's good enough, so to speak. For me, the difficult thing for Chelsea is going to be just getting all these people to mesh together. They have a lot of new faces. And, you spoke to Chelsea's kind of history of loaning out some of their younger players. I think that's trickier to do now that you've given some of them a year as a starting 11 player who got to the Champions League, by the way. I think it's harder to send those guys out on loan than maybe it was before. And maybe there's a little bit, I'm just going to move on to a new project permanently. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of guys. Tammy Abraham's a guy that I would look at and say, if Werner works out and hits the ground running, I think Abraham will be someone who maybe looks for greener pastures somewhere. But there's a lot of competition along all those attackers, and how are you going to keep all those mouths happy? I think that's a real question for Chelsea and Frank Lampard.
Mm-hmm.
So with Chelsea, let's stick with them for a moment, because after this I have a question for Sapone. But Chelsea to me is the boom bust team of the Prem this year, where it's either going to be all cylinders, all engines go, or it's going to be an absolute disaster. I really don't see too much of a middle ground opportunity there for them. Sapone, I have a question for you. What in God's name did Man U do with their jerseys? Those weird zebra things.
I mean,
can we set them on fire? Can we Brexit those things?
They're so bad.
I hate those jerseys, but then today I saw David Beckham out there pulling that jersey off, and that man could literally make anything look great. And
true.
I don't really have an answer. I will hope we never wear them the entire season, but those are some atrocious jerseys. Maybe Adidas isn't happy with how many shirts we're selling or something like that, because that is. Yeah, I don't really
See,
have
but
words
the thing
to
is,
describe.
the jersey's okay. Let me rephrase. The jersey's bad. The shorts and the socks are insanely hideous. It's the whole thing being zebra style. If they wore black shorts and black socks, it'd be all right.
Yeah,
I'm going to go the other way. I think it's good that they leaned into it and didn't just half-ass it.
You're an Arsenal fan, Braden.
Fair.
yeah.
If you're going to go crazy ugly, you got to go super ugly with it.
Yes.
I mean, you might as well just go next level.
Jeez.
Yeah, I mean the face of the guy who modeled for the kids, you could just tell him, he's like, I know I'm going to be made fun of all over the internet, so might as well.
But I know that my check is going to cash, and it's going to be that way forever.
That's also true.
Yep.
We got a question from the Twitch pitch from Badgermon, and I want an answer from both of you guys. Who gets sold for Spurs? What are they going to do? Is Ndombele going to be out? Badger says that Mourinho doesn't seem to rate him. Sapoon, you first.
I mean, Mourinho always goes and makes an example of somebody at a club, and I think Ndombele seems to be the de facto guy. But again, he's a player they paid a lot of money for, and this is not really a seller's market. So given that Daniel Levy always tries to get the most value out of the players, I think there's a good likelihood that everybody just ends up staying unless they're willing to take some losses. And maybe in a year, Mourinho decides to, Mourinho and sell some players. But as things stand, I think they're going to keep 99% of the players. I would be very shocked, honestly, even if Ndombele does want to leave and Mourinho wants him gone. I think Levy might just come in and say that this is not the market that I would want to sell Ndombele a year after he was bought for 60-odd million.
Well, and, Braden, we talk about 60-odd million, which is kind of like the equivalent of change for a 20 for a team like Manchester City. They just kind of sit there and open their wallet and kind of dump it out on the table and go, okay, here we go. Likelihood that somebody like Koulibaly still ends up in Manchester City. I know that we have some positive COVID tests that we have to deal with as well with Mahrez and another player. So inbound for Manchester City, is Koulibaly still at the top of the list, do you think?
Oh,
I froze him.
I don't.
We froze Braden. Good time. Sapoon, what do you think?
Yeah, who red carded Braden?
Braden didn't deserve that.
Yeah, the Koulibaly Man City question. What about Manchester City, who can spend pretty much anything they want at any time?
I mean, defense has been their problem, so I very much think Koulibaly is a possibility. I think it's kind of wild that they have Laporte. They went and got Nathan Ake, and now they're going to go get Koulibaly, which is, 3 big-name signings overall. So Pep Guardiola wants to win the Champions League with them, and he's going to, and they don't really care. I think they're going to give a 2-fingered salute to FFP anytime anybody questions them about that now. So
that's accurate.
It's I think he's very well likely that he ends up with Man City. The interesting part is going to be that if they do end up conceding a couple in the first week or so when they play, hey there.
He's unfrozen.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It's all good.
I've frozen with
you froze in a good pose, though. It worked really well.
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Do you think if the first couple of weeks Man City's defense still looks shaky, that the price goes up a bit maybe for Koulibaly if the deal's still not done? Because I think that those are situations that can, kind of happen with the season being started in a week and the window being open till October.
I think knowing De Laurentiis, he's going to stick roughly with the number that was given. He's not going to deviate too much from that. And he's also going, and the reverse of that is he's going to demand that Man City doesn't try to go below it either. Keep in mind, Koulibaly's very happy in Naples. He loves playing there. He loves that team. He's not exactly eager to move. And De Laurentiis knows this, knows that's leverage for him. And he will make sure that Man City holds that line on the cash. But I don't necessarily see him kicking it up to like 88, 85 mil to get Koulibaly out. I think it'll hover right there in the 70 range.
So as somebody who watches Italian football a lot, do you think he's going to be a good fit for a Man City team, or do you think it's kind of they're just signing him because they can, kind of a situation?
No, he would be a great fit for Pep, I think. And he's going to have to, obviously, with any player that goes into Pep's system, you think you're good on the ball. Well, you're going to have to discover that you have a next level. I think Koulibaly can do that. What he will provide you is a little bit of steel in the spine, and he will absolutely be able to recover, I think, better than the current Man City backs. His ability to recover, his ability to, if he finds himself out of position, which isn't terribly often, his ability to recover from that and still manage to protect the goal, I think second to none in Serie A. If they manage to get him, it's a coup. You're getting a guy who doesn't necessarily want to leave a team, but De Laurentiis, because he needs to keep the X's, the numbers on the right side of the bottom line. He's going to make sure that deal gets done.
Okay.
All right, let's get into the bottom half of the table, and we'll get into predictions and all of that in just a minute. But the bottom half, the three teams that are coming up, and Katie Weaver had this question on the Twitch pitch, and Braden, I want to get your answer first. The three teams coming up, Leeds, West Brom, and Fulham, which one will finish the highest this season?
So I think everyone's kind of saying that it's Leeds, and I think there's a good reason for that. I think they've got a good pedigree as far as manager who can get them there. I think that's probably the odds-on favorite for that. That's.
You want to go in a different direction, I can tell, and you might have frozen again because you wanted to.
See? Yeah, exactly right.
Sapoon, who do you think has the best season out of the three promoted teams?
I hope anybody but Leeds, as a Man United fan. But I do think it has to be Leeds. I think they've made some really decent deals out there in their window, and their manager is somebody who has went on to inspire a lot of younger coaches, and he is an amazing manager. So I do think there's a likelihood that Leeds do end up finishing in the top 10. So I think if I had to actually bet with some real money of mine, I would probably go with Leeds. But since I'm not, I hope it's anybody but Leeds.
Are you excited that rivalry's back, though, at least?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first game at Leeds is going to be amazing, especially if the fans are back and it's a full stadium. I think that is a game that everybody's going to look forward to. I think United fans we've made fun of them for a very long time. And I think the difference between the three teams that are coming up, Leeds actually behave like they belong. I think for them, they're finally back to where they're supposed to be. And it's not like Fulham hopefully don't do some dumb stuff like they did last time around and spend money on a bunch of players and see how it works out. But Leeds, again, I think as a Man United fan, those games are going to be very hard. And I think they're here to stay. If I had to bet on terms of who is going to stay in the Premier League the longest between the three, it's going to be Leeds United, I'd say. And it wouldn't surprise me if they come in like the way Wolverhampton Wanderers did a couple of seasons ago and just get into the conversation for a European spot, make a couple of runs here and there, and they're always paying for the bigger teams.
All right, Braden, you were kind of building up to it, and then we sensed you were going to take that right turn. So go ahead and take that right turn and let us know what you think.
So, I mean, like I was saying, I think Leeds are the odds-on favorite. I think you have to go with them. I think Fulham are a team that are going to be better than people think. I don't think they're going to do what they came in this year. They've got Hector back there in the defense, and I think if you look at what they've done in the championship, I think that's stabilized them a little bit. So I don't think they're just going to be like the sieve that concedes all these goals. And, you do have Mitrovic, who's a double-digit goal scorer in the Premier League. I think he's a guy who's going to be capable of scoring goals. Now, do I think they finish better than Leeds? No, but I think they're going to be better than people think they are.
All right.
So the question. Oh, go ahead, John. You're
Well, no. It's just when it comes to the relegation battle, I was just going to sit there and say, realistically, guys, and Sapun, let me start with you. How many teams realistically, we don't have to name them right now, probably we can rename them and name them in a little bit, but how many teams realistically do you think will be in the scrap this season?
I think there are a good 5 to 6 teams that are probably going to be in that situation. And I think depending on how they spend in the next couple of weeks, you probably could get an idea of how they do. But as you said, no need to name teams, but some of the teams that survived last year barely are definitely going to be back in there, because I don't think their additions have been great, if any. And I think on the other side, amongst the newcomers, you would be not shocked to see at least one of them be in the relegation scrap for the upcoming season.
Braden, what do you think? Numbers?
I think 5's probably about right, and that could probably be a positive or negative on one either way. I look at. I think there's going to be a team that surprises us that's in the relegation scrap.
There's going to be a surprise stinker, is what you're saying.
Pretty much, yeah. I don't know who that is right now, but I think there's going to be a team that you look at and you say, I didn't really expect them to be here. But I think 5's the right number.
Thank you for that, Braden.
Nick?
So with it, every Atlanta's adopted Premier League team, Newcastle, what do you see happening with them this year? Is this the year where they take a bit of a step forward, or are they just kind of stuck there in the 10, 12, 13 range?
So I'm a little bit of a Callum Wilson truther. I really like that pickup by them. I think that helps them in an area that they've been really bad in. And I think it's also not necessarily the long-term answer. So maybe it gives Joe Linton a little bit of time with pressure off him to see if maybe there's something there that we didn't see last year. But I think Callum Wilson, St. Maximum, and Almiron are a trickier out than people necessarily look at it at face value. On the other side, I mean, I feel like they're just kind of a bunch of guys who play for set pieces in the back. And they're just kind of some guys. And so I'd like to see them maybe make another move there. I know they've been linked with Rob Holding on loan from Arsenal, which I'm not that inspired by that either, but that could be helpful for them. And that could be good if he gets some kind of consistent playing time. He may turn it around there more and be helpful for them.
All right. I mean, I will say this is one of the more controversial opinions I've held for a while, that Alan St. Maximin reminds me a lot of what I saw of Sadio Mane at Southampton. I think there is a lot of quality there that if used in the right way, you can get a lot out of him. And I think Callum Wilson is a perfect signing for him, because if those two can get on the same page with Almiron, I think that there are a team that can score a lot of goals. They were the last, I think, in terms of XG last year. So it was kind of surprising that they didn't really get relegated. So this year, if they play some better football and St. Maximin gets going, Joel Teen gets going, and Callum Wilson does what he has done for Bournemouth the last couple of seasons, you could really see a Newcastle team that finishes higher than people have expected them to this upcoming season.
See, you guys are very excited about Newcastle, but I went, and I'm glad that since you guys are the betting experts here, I went and checked Odds Checker for some aggregated numbers here, and they're not so happy about Newcastle coming into the season. They've got Newcastle in this scrap that we're talking about. I would say they've probably got it at 5 teams. West Brom is the best odds of getting relegated, plus 105. Fulham is 110. Villa is plus 200. And Crystal Palace and Newcastle are both plus 225. Now, their surprise that's in their bottom 8 of teams to get relegated, at least it's a surprise to me, and I want to see what you guys think, Braden. Sheffield United, plus 350 to get relegated.
I think that's interesting. I'm a little bit skeptical that Sheffield can repeat, but I kind of saw that more as like a top end of the bottom half. So kind of like the 11-12 range.
Right.
I'm not necessarily buying that they're going to contend for a Europe spot again, but relegation is something I would be surprised at. That's interesting, though.
Yeah, I was surprised by it, and I was even more surprised by this one. And Sapoon, if you want to yell about it, go ahead, because I know you're a closet Brighton fan. Plus 400 that Brighton gets relegated.
Thank you.
I hope Brighton does not. I am really very high on them in terms of what they can do. I think they might set the standard in terms of being the best out of the, not so great teams that are going to be competing. I think if they finish 10th, I think it would be a huge success. And they held on to their defender, which Leeds desperately wanted. And I think it was a very interesting saga because they wanted some crazy money that, Leeds were like, hey, he's just been in the championship. Like, let's not pretend like he's Van Dijk. And then on the other side, I think Tariq Lamptey is a very, very good right back for them. And your boy from Boca Juniors, McAllister, I think he's a very, very good player as well. And you go with Muape, you have, the guy like the likes of Lewis Dunk in there. I think it's a team that can make some noise if they can consistently get together. But again, I think 10th is probably the highest I can see them finish. I would bet money that they are not going to be in a relegation scrap. I really like their manager. I think he's another one of those that in the future you could see him take a next step and go into one of the smaller big clubs in like Tottenham or someone. But I think Brighton, probably the best of the rest, kind of like how Sheffield United were last year. I'm not saying they're going to go in a contending Champions League position at one point, but I think 10th, 11th is where Brighton is going to finish, in my opinion. I will say, as far as Newcastle goes, kind of the term that we use for Chelsea in terms of boom or bust team, I think Newcastle is very similar, where if things start clicking for them, they're going to finish higher. But if things start not going their way, they would be one of the odds-on favorite to get relegated, in my opinion.
Maybe they have that wide range, John. With it's Chelsea's range, they could fall into 6 or 7, but Newcastle could get up to 6 or 7 and be in a relegation scrap if it goes bad.
Yeah,
I think 6 or 7's a bit high, though. Just gonna be honest about that.
Yeah. That's a lie.
We'll see.
Now, let me bring in Villa into the discussion here a little bit. Everybody knows that Jack Grealish is the point of the spear. He's the guy that gets beaten up more than anybody when it comes to Villa. They're looking at trying to Adrian Brewster. And let me ask you this, Braden, to start off. Braden first and then Sapoon. Would you be as much of a Josh King truther with Villa as you are a Callum Wilson truther with Newcastle when it comes to Bournemouth guys that Bournemouth is trying to sell off?
So I do like Josh King. I think he's a good player. I think that'd be a good addition for them. I'm not as high on him as I am Callum Wilson, but I do like Josh King, and I rate him as a pretty decent player for kind of that level. Villa as a whole, I think, they've got to figure out what they're doing with Grealish and plan around that real quick, because I think that needs to be settled real soon.
So obviously, as a Man United fan, I really love Josh King, having seen it come through the academy at United. And I really wanted him back in January when he was available instead of Ighalo. But as far as Aston Villa goes, I think for them, Jackie Boy, they kind of quoted a wild price in 80 million to Manchester United. And I
was going to say, where was the Grealish to Manchester United discussion, Sapoon? I was waiting for that.
I think this is something that the Premier League has created because of its TV rights deal, where I think in other leagues, you kind of have, the bigger clubs can kind of force the smaller teams to sell at a 30, 40 million range. Whereas now you get 40 million for finishing 20th in the Premier League next year. So for them, they would rather keep Jack Grealish a year and then maybe sell him at a 50, 60 if the market's back to normal. So the player I think that can make the big difference for them if he stays fit is McGinn. I was a big fan of McGinn when they first came up and they were doing well. His injury, I think, kind of made it harder for Jack Grealish in a way because now they had just him in order to shine. But as far as Aston Villa goes, they would be down there, I think, in my opinion, in terms of a relegation team. One of the 5, in my opinion, definitely. Because as good as Jack Grealish is, I think they're not going to have a very good time, in terms of finishing. But who knows? Maybe Josh King and him pop off and they finish like 15th instead of 19th this upcoming season.
It's a very small range for Villa there, Saboon.
I mean, I am not very high on a team like Aston Villa. Like, personally, I think they kind of remind me a lot of what one-man teams have previously done, where they can stay up for 1 year and then the next year it's just, the writing's on the wall and they didn't really improve, kind of a thing. Plus, I'm sorry, Villa fans out there.
That's a team that if Grealish were to get hurt, even just for like a pulled hamstring that keeps you out 6 to 8 weeks or something, man, this is not the year for that. With all the fixture congestion that we have this year. And they are really in trouble if something like that were to happen.
I mean, if he has COVID by throwing one of his parties, it could be.
Yeah. Yep.
So guys, with gambling, I'm going to throw a couple of assumptions out there, and you guys can feel free to chime in or not. We tend to look for things below that surface level stuff, the stuff where people, if you throw out, this is the reason I'm putting this team above this team. People go, huh? What? Why? What are you talking? Those little things, those subcurrents that some of us more degenerate gamblers look for. What are some of the things that you guys are looking at when you see this season, all of the variables that can go wrong? For me, as an example, I see a team like Spurs, and I think that they have a potential to go top 4 because they're more of an energy conservation team. They're going to bunker. They're going to just absorb all the pressure, counterattack. And I think that's going to cause problems in a year like this year where there's very little rest time between seasons. What are some of the things you're looking for, and what are some of the teams that you think could thrive in, from a gambling perspective, completely for recreational uses only, for your own judgment and whatnot, in this sort of COVID-type situation?
So for me, I think I'm mostly looking at squad depth. And is there a spot on a team? And Villa's a great example. So Grealish goes down, Villa are just in a world of trouble. And so what are teams that have a specific player that if he gets hurt, or even for just a short period of time, is just going to be in a lot of trouble? I mean, if Arsenal were to lose Aubameyang for 6 to 8 weeks, again, like there's a real problem there if that happens. And just kind of looking for those points. And if you can come up with a theory of what if on this, I think that's a good place to kind of start and look for those kind of pressure points of where things can go wrong. Because that's kind of where predicting that sort of thing and just saying like, hey, this might happen is kind of where you get some of the bigger gains because you have the longer odds and things like that on it.
Absolutely. And I think in terms of teams, I think stability is going to be a big plus this year. I think teams that have had the same managers and are much more, known to one another in terms of teammates, where you're not trying to fit in 4 or 5 players like maybe a Chelsea is, I think it could really help you in keeping the same squad and just going with it. But again, in terms of even with squad depth, I'm very intrigued to see how Liverpool does this upcoming season, because they're a team in my eyes where they play this high energy, heavy metal football, as people like to call it. But like in a year where you haven't had the rest and you're essentially going to be playing straight through into the Euros next year, will these players be able to like keep fit? Because we haven't really had Salah out for, a hamstring injury and such, or like a Mane being out for an extended period. And when it happened with, say, an Alisson, they still had Van Dijk. They figured it out for what it was worth. But if they do lose a Salah for, say, half a season, the way, United and Arsenal have been accustomed to losing in like a traditional 6-month layoff for players, I don't know what Liverpool would be. So depending on how they play, I think, as you said, Tottenham, much more energy conserving team. But with Europa League, how does that factor in? Because they don't really have the squad depth as compared to others. So I think that those are things that you kind of have to consider. And in my opinion, especially when it comes down to betting, going against the grain sometimes really helps. I think last year everybody was low on Sheffield United. And just because of Dean Henderson, I was really high on them because, they played this unique way of football. And it worked for them because when they didn't have to play as many games and they thankfully didn't have injuries, it worked out. But this year, you kind of look at underneath the surface, kind of who's the second choice for certain important positions. And it's interesting to see that Premier League, the squad depth after the top 2-3 teams, there isn't really a lot there, to be honest.
Let's get into each of your teams before we move into the top two here, because I don't know if Arsenal can really be in that conversation right now, although they did win a trophy last year. And I don't know if Manchester United can be in that conversation. And I want to set this up with you, Sapoon, because we had a question from one of our listeners, Nathan Pugh. He asked about how do you think Manchester United lines up with the additions that they've made, with how this team is looking going into the season. Do you think that midfield trio of Bruno Fernandes, Pogba, and Van de Beek can work together? Do you think that's going to be able to put them into that top 4 and contending spot that some people are trying to put them in?
So I think as far as Manchester United goes, Van de Beek provides cover for both the Pogba and the Bruno positions. And for Paul Pogba, realistically, he played less than 20 games last year in the league for Man United. I think it's a very different Man United team when he plays along with Bruno Fernandes. I think when we are chasing games, you'll probably see a Donny van de Beek, but given that he likes to play near the box, I think he probably does not play with all three of them at the same time. But I think with Champions League there, you can rotate players now. I think that's where Manchester United haven't had anybody really, because you look back at it, you're looking at Andres Pereira, Jesse Lingard kind of players coming in from the bench, which now I think with Donny van de Beek being there, even if a Rashford goes down, you can move into a system where you just get Donny van de Beek to subsidize the creativity that a Rashford would bring in. So I think there is huge potential there. And if Martial and Rashford take another step, I think they could be there. And Mason Greenwood, I mean, that's my boy. And number 11 does things to a Manchester United player, as we've just seen. But if he can keep going forward, and there's no better person to learn than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, in my opinion, as a striker, because he was also the striker coach back in 07-08 when we had Ronaldo, Rooney, and Tevez. So there is a team, but I think ultimately everybody improves. I think Arsenal is going to be a lot better than they were last year. Spurs are a lot better. So it's going to be a lot closer, in my opinion, than what people are expecting the gap was between the top two teams and the rest of them. And I think that's where ultimately consistency and keeping players healthy in a season like this, if Manchester United can do that, they'll be great. But my worry still is there's no replacement for Matic. And I think that's where United are going to struggle, because you can't really hide the DM position in this league anymore. So
right.
I hope we finish top 4, but I wouldn't be surprised that we miss out on a top 4 because of the lack of spending from us.
Well, then let me flip it, Braden. Do you think Arsenal can contend at that level, and how do you feel about the business they've done in the window?
So when we say contend at the level, we're talking top 4, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm assuming. Yeah, I think Arsenal will contend around there, because you look at a team that when Mikel Arteta came in there, that's a very different team that's been, especially against the big teams, they played a lot better. You look at, I know Liverpool were on there, like, we just won the title, we don't care about these games. But, beat Liverpool, beat City in the Cup, beat Chelsea in the final. They went up against the big teams and beat them. So I think Arsenal is better there, and they'll contend there. I think they still have a little bit more business to do. So Thomas Partey has been linked the entire window. That's one that I think Atletico will eventually budge on their kind of pay the fee in full. I think they budge on that at the end of the window. But I don't know when exactly that comes over. But he's kind of the piece that all Arsenal fans are looking at and saying, yeah, a physical defensive midfielder is kind of what this team needs to take a step and really be more solidly competing in these games instead of just like kind of hoping Aubameyang does something ridiculous, which he does.
So then let me ask you, Braden, about a piece of Arsenal that a lot of folks don't want to talk about. Mesut Ozil.
You're right. I don't want to talk about that. But go on.
But no, just for those who are outside of your fan base, the other 19 sides that are looking at this, I mean, how much of an unbridled mess is this? And I think that Mikel Arteta is resigned to having him around this year. What has this saga, and I'm going to use that word, what has this saga done to this fan base about the front office and this individual?
So I basically think if you think of Arsenal 3 years ago, kind of the whole discussion around the fan base was Wenger in, Wenger out, and that's all kind of people talked about the whole time. And now I feel like you have a very similar thing in the fan base on what do you think of Mesut Ozil? And like some people are like, oh, he just needs to go away immediately. And then some people are like, if you just let him play, he fixes all of our problems. I'm much closer to he should probably move along. But, I think you said it right. Like he's going to be at Arsenal until the end of his contract in June. And so he's going to be there. I don't know if he's going to play this year. Like at all. Like I think it could be
This is like a Rodwell Sunderland situation that we're looking at here.
A little bit, yeah. Like I think it could be Arteta taking a stand and saying, we don't really care who you are. We don't care what you're paid. You're going to put in the amount of work that I say that you have to put in. And if you don't, you don't play. And I think he can be that kind of that may be what he serves the team this year, is to be the Mikel Arteta's example of perform up to the standards and you get to play. Wow.
Yeah. Is that something? Is it something where, I mean, you just said that you think that he's going to be there until the end of the contract, but is this something where you feel that maybe it could be it could sort of turn into almost like a Gareth Bale situation at Real Madrid, where it's like, you know what? I'm not going to accept any transfer you offer. I'm just going to sit here and collect my check and play golf on non-training days. Are we heading to that direction?
I don't know that we're not already there, to be honest. Okay. Like I think, I shouldn't say that. That's a little bit much.
Oh, come on.
I think Mesut is very happy to play if he's picked, but I don't necessarily know that he's this guy that's gonna be insulted by the fact that he's not picked and put in all this extra work to get there. I don't think that's who he is. So I don't know. I don't see where he fits back in this team per se, but I do think that if he kind of gets if he does get his attitude on straight, I think Arteta will let him back into the squad, provided he does that. I'm just more skeptical that he will actually do it.
All right, let's get into the top of the table here. Sapoon, I need you to explain this one to me because I'm a little surprised by it. Odds Checker has Manchester City as a minus 121. I believe that's from DraftKings, actually, because Odds Checker is an aggregator. As the clear favorite to win the Premier League this season, Liverpool's a plus 225. Would I be crazy not to put a random juice box on Liverpool at plus 225?
I don't think you'd be crazy at all.
But feels crazy that number's even there.
Yeah.
I think because of last season, a lot of people have kind of forgotten what Manchester City did the previous 2 years. And honestly, with the additions that they have made, I could very well see them, be back to the Pep Guardiola Man City that we knew. But I think being odds-on favorite by that far ahead of Liverpool is kind of the result, the fact that they can make a 60 million signing in Riyad Mahrez and make him sit on the bench. Like, I think that's where Manchester City are just different than everybody else, where they are going to be the odds-on favorite. I think Liverpool, you might see something very interesting where they wanted to get Timo Werner, but somehow financially didn't work out, ends up at Chelsea. Now there's talks of Thiago that's been going on for a very long time. And again, you hear rumors about United, then you start hearing that Barcelona wouldn't necessarily mind getting him back and having him and De Jong out there. So Liverpool are a team that did very well, but again, they haven't spent the last couple of windows. They went and got Minamino. They got the left back this summer to cover for Robertson. And I think that's why there is a chance that Liverpool kind of take a step back, because it's very hard to improve when you're that good and that far ahead of everybody else. And I just don't know how you kind of look at Liverpool and say that they should be considered favorites ahead of Manchester City. Because I think if City click, De Bruyne is back to being De Bruyne, Phil Foden takes the next step, Aguero is back, Jesus is there, they are just the team to beat at the end of the day. And we'll have to see where Liverpool ends up. But I wouldn't be surprised if a team like Chelsea, if they all click, them come in second ahead of Liverpool.
So then, Braden, if Chelsea's sitting at plus 1,000, should I take a juice box that I don't like a cranberry aloe flavored juice box, and throw it on Chelsea?
It's not a bad bet per se. I'm much more pessimistic that all these pieces gel and get off to a hot start. I don't hate it though. Like if you take the opposite view and say I think all of them play together brilliantly and they click from the beginning, I think then absolutely you should do it. Me personally, I think that there's going to be a little bit of figuring out that goes on with this team, and I think next year will be the year to place a bet on Chelsea for that, if you are so inclined.
Okay.
For recreational purposes only.
Of course.
Yes.
Juice boxes.
Yes, juice boxes. I mean, Manchester City minus 125, Liverpool at plus 225. Now, I'm not going to say to win the league, but if you had that, what was your stinky flavor, Jason?
Cranberry aloe. It sounds awful.
So,
I would never buy it.
So if you had a cranberry aloe juice box spoon for the top 4, where would you put that cranberry aloe juice box?
Ooh. For the top 4, I'd probably go with Wolverhampton Wanderers.
Really?
I think they are a team
check the numbers
that
on this one.
Have kept taking the steps, and I think you'll get some great odds on Wolverhampton Wanderers to finish top.
20,000.
Well, that's to
There we
win
go.
the league. That's to win the league,
Yeah,
not
right.
to finish in the top 4. Because I don't think Sapoon's saying they're going to win the league. Are you, Sapoon?
No.
I'm just
No,
checking.
Let's not get that carried away.
Yeah.
I could see them finish top 4 because, again, it's one of those things where if a couple of results went their way last year, we could be having a conversation of Wolverhampton Wanderers in the Champions League. So
Plus 650 for
plus
Wolves
600.
in the top 4.
Yeah.
I think outside of, if you don't want to bet on any of the traditional top 6 clubs, I think Wolves would be my bet because I think that would make the most sense. But amongst the traditional ones, in terms of winning the league, somebody might start calling me delusional, but I will say that if there is a chance that a team like Manchester United gets to a place where they can compete this upcoming season, I think it might sound absolutely insane that they finished closer to relegation last year than they did to the champions, and I'm still saying that. But if I had to pick somebody to put the crazy juice on, I would probably put it on them to win the league, because outside of the top 2. Because you guys are on the page, who is the third favorite to win?
To win
Chelsea.
the league? Chelsea.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, Chelsea is
I think-
plus 1,000.
Oh, there you go.
United's plus
From a
1,600.
betting perspective, you're probably going to have very traditional betting structures from now till about mid to late November. But once that weather sets in and then the tired legs really hit, I think it's going to be something where you're going to have to go below surface and really start digging down. It's going to be very problematic for bettors, I think, mid to late November and beyond. It's going to be very strange from that standpoint. One team that has been it's captured the imagination for a while, Leicester City. Can they remotely keep anything going? Is this going to be where the pixie dust wears off and they plummet?
So we've talked about this a lot on our show about how Brendan Rodgers teams kind of tend to fade over the end of the season and have trouble closing out season. So obviously you have the famous debacle at Crystal Palace with Liverpool. You have
he just lets it slip, man.
There you go. Just
that's Nick's
throwing
joke
that softball
usually.
up for you to hit out of the park. You've got that. You've got this past year with how they closed out. I mean, they were abysmal at times this year. And I think you've got a short layoff, which if you take the point of view that Brendan Rodgers teams get out to a fast start because of their pressing, because of their high intensity, and you've got a short layoff, a really congested fixture list, it doesn't sound great for them, right? Especially when you add European play. I'm pessimistic on them kind of repeating and challenging this year.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. All right, guys, as we finish up with you, I want your champion this season. I want your top four, and I want your Golden Boot winner. And if you have some kind of special prop bet that you feel really good about happening this season, I want that too. Braden, I think Sapoon is kind of on the Manchester City train. Let's get all of Braden's picks first.
Yeah, so this is tough. For me personally, I'm slightly more pessimistic on City than Sapoon is. I think that they've got a little bit of a mentality issue since Kompany's not there with that team. I'm going to go with Liverpool as champion, followed by City, followed by United, and then being the hopeless romantic that I am, Arsenal in fourth. And with that, I've got Aubameyang for the Golden Boot.
Plus 600 on that one.
Yeah.
I like
as far as like crazy prop bets, I like Fulham to not get relegated.
Okay. Let me see if I've got that to stay up because they had those over here too. All right, I got to go to the next page on that one.
Minus 138 not to be relegated for
Wow,
Fulham.
well, that's not too bad. Could be worse.
West Brom is at the bottom of that grouping at minus 125. Villa is minus 225 as your number 3.
Okay. All right, Sapoon, what you got?
I mean, I guess for the champion, I will go with Manchester City. I'm going to go with City number 1, United number 2, Arsenal number 3, and Tottenham number 4.
Wow.
Okay.
Love for the co-host and just out there, man.
I mean, I'm very low on where Liverpool currently stand. I think that 2020, since the turn of the year, it was not great for them. Yes, they were a country mile ahead of everybody in the league, but they didn't impress me this year. I think their team previous year was better than the team this year. And as we've talked about this before, where you have back-to-back seasons of almost getting to 100 points, even for a team with the depth and the quality of Manchester City, they had a tough time last year. And if Liverpool are signing absolutely no reinforcements for that midfield, and it could be a very interesting year for them. And again, it's a short turnover. They play this high-energy football, so I'm just going to throw it out there. And if somebody wants to call me a hater of Liverpool, then you're absolutely correct.
That would be right. Golden Boot for you.
Man, I'm gonna be a homer on that one as well, and go with Anthony Martial.
Plus 2,000.
Yeah.
there we go. I think if you want to make $1 worth something, then you can try that bet out. Only on your responsibility, though, not because I am telling you to do so. However, I will say, as far as Golden Boot realistically goes, I would be very surprised if somebody like a Jamie Vardy wins it again. I think this year was kind of an anomaly, but he also always tends to outperform his XG. So there's that. As far as prop bet goes, I do have one, which is my boys down in Brighton finishing in the top 10.
I like it.
Brighton top 10, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if you could actually do that, but...
yeah, you can, I think.
Yeah, you can.
Brighton's right around 300, 325, 350.
Yep.
That's in the
All
ballpark
right.
for them to finish in the top 10.
All right. That would be... How about you guys, before we leave, who would be your champion in the upcoming season?
I'm going City. I think Liverpool is going to be second, but I think City is going to be fresher and motivated, and Liverpool's going to struggle. I think the points you make are really good, Sapoon, that their style will be one that's hard hit by this kind of season with a short layoff, with a lot of games in a short period of time, a lot of players playing for their national teams, European competition as well. We know how seriously they take that. I think it'll catch up to them this season. They'll finish second. I'm going chalk. I think it's United and Chelsea in the top 4. Sorry, Braden. I think you'll be close, but I don't think you're getting there. I do like Arteta, though, as a manager. I think he is one of the up-and-coming managers in the world for sure, and I think next year, depending on the market, top 4 for sure. Golden Boot. I'll go just a little out on the limb and go with Raheem Sterling. He's plus 1,300. It could be a wild card because I think City's goals get spread around a little bit, so maybe that'll hurt Sterling. Crazy prop bet. I will go with the first manager to get fired, and I'm going to take the plus 875 on Steve Bruce.
Oh, wow.
Not a fan.
Well, no one is.
Well, and especially if Mike Ashley finally sells it, and then they have a new owner, and then even if Mike Ashley doesn't sell it, just as general impatience, I could completely see Steve Bruce being that individual.
Yeah, I think he's the guy. All right, John, your picks.
All right, I will go Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Manchester United, Golden Boot Harry Kane, and let me check my prop for my wild one. Well, it's not all that wild, but I'll go ahead and say it. Brighton to be relegated at plus 350.
Oh,
wow.
Man.
A lack of profound offense from Brighton is going to catch up with Graham Potter, and because of that, he'll be my first manager to get sacked.
I think you're going to get good odds on that one because nobody's on that boat.
So,
Nick?
All right. Okay, all right, my turn here. This is the league I'm weakest in. I have no problem saying that, but I'll go ahead and say that I think it's going to be, I think Liverpool repeats, and I think it's going to come virtue of the fact that I know Sapoon, I can see the look, I can feel the hatred and energy. It makes me strong. I'm going to say I think that the teams that come out gangbusters to start with and build a large enough cushion, the ones that are going to be able to survive mid-season injury troubles. And I think Liverpool can do that early on. I think City can. I think City will be a bit more consistent, but I think that Liverpool is going to come out and just go gangbusters. It's going to be an extraordinarily tight race between Liverpool and City. Liverpool will edge that out. And then I'm going to say Chelsea. I think they're going to be okay. I think they're going to have problems with Timo Werner early on. He's not going to be receiving the ball quite as close to the goal as he's used to doing when he was with Leipzig. So, just via the system difference. So that's going to be something they're going to have to overcome. Problems in the back line as well if Silva can, acclimate quickly enough. And then I'm going to say that Arsenal will be there to finish out the top 4. I know that everybody thinks that And I'm not an Arsenal fan by any stretch of the imagination. Before anyone starts coming after me, I own nothing of the Gunners. In fact, I almost got in a fist fight with a diehard pub brawling Gooner. I'm telling you, I'm not that guy. I think they're there. I think got them playing at a high enough level. Golden Boot winner. I'm gonna join you on the Kane train. I think Kane could be that guy. It's going to be that consistency issue. I think that they're going to be able to bunker and counter, and that's going to be able to allow him to maybe not do quite as much as he would normally have to do. I think he's going to be A-okay though. I feel good with that bet. Prop bet. I'm going to go. I'm preparing full-on assault with this. I think Leeds gets relegated.
Oh,
wow! Sapoon's happy. Everybody else hates you guys.
I don't want it to happen. I love Bielsa. I love Bielsa. I really do. But I think that as much as I want to believe that the Leeds story can continue and this wonderful magical mystery tour of our man Bielsa will continue, I think that it's going to be something where the energy expenditure toward the end of that season, the short turnaround time, I can see them coming out with a couple of wins early on that look really good and them completely falling off a cliff far earlier than his teams normally do. First manager to get fired, I think I'll go with Steve Bruce as well, just because it's Steve Bruce. I don't like him.
Leeds gets some wild reactions in the Twitch pitch, I'm learning. Nick, you got 6 yellow cards from Thad Dooley on the Twitch pitch, all in a row. So you're suspended for multiple games. And then Captain Ragamuffin chimed in and said, Leeds can get relegated and put in administration. Screw them. So, I mean, it's kind of polarizing.
I'm not on that trail. I'm just saying that all these people who expended so much energy toward the end of the season are going to be people who are going to feel the wrath of that earlier on, far earlier than you normally would. And keep in mind that Liverpool, because of the fact that they won by not even a country mile, they won by like a short 737 flight. They had the ability to rest some guys, so maybe that high energy style can pay off early on. I just think that's where the difference is going to be. I want Leeds to succeed. I want the magical mystery tour to continue. I love Bielsa. Too much energy expenditure at the end of last season. It's going to hit him early on.
It's going to be a fun.
He'll get found out.
Mm-hmm. I do think a lot could change between now and October.
That's also true.
Yeah.
We might need to revisit all of this when the window closes. Guys, let everybody know where they can follow you, where they can listen to the show. Braden, go first.
Yeah, so for me, you can find me on Twitter, TFA Braden is a handle, and Podcast of Football Academy on all your favorite podcasting platforms.
Indeed. And for me, it's TFA Sapoon. If you want to hear all the Man United jokes and hatred towards Liverpool, I'm your guy. And please subscribe to us on the Football Academy and any podcast streaming platform that you would like.
Awesome.
Thank you guys.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us. We appreciate it. Hopefully we'll be able to grab a beer together soon at the brew house. We'll definitely do this again and kind of revisit our predictions. Maybe when the window closed, that might be a good time to do it.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Right.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, everybody, hang out with us. We're going to regroup here and get into an overreaction Monday because we have things to react about as we say goodbye to Sapoon and we say goodbye to Braden. 2 really good guys that's a great show, especially if you're looking for a little bit of that gambling action. You know, you got some extra juice boxes. You want to get squirrely with them, you can do that. Those guys will help you out. And yes, they are very partial to their teams, and it creates some very funny interactions between them because of their team allegiances. Speaking of team allegiances, we had an interesting match on Saturday night with a team that Atlanta United fans don't really care for very much. I've been told many times that it's not a rivalry, and it's not a rivalry. It doesn't matter. It's just Orlando. It doesn't matter. There's nothing extra here, no reason to get too excited about it, right?
Orlando, Orlando.
Yeah, what happened in stoppage time, Orlando? I honestly, and we've talked about this as the football's come back, the soccer's come back since the pandemic break. There's been little things that make you feel like it's really back. Stoppage time goals and the feeling you get when you score them against Orlando to get a point on the road, that's when it really felt back to normal for me. I am not going to lie. Yeah. I was a little excited Saturday night.
As you should have been. And I think what we saw is really how Adam John should be used currently. Comes in off the bench, and he's that presence, the oak tree that's 6'3" that comes in, and he's there for set pieces and crosses. And you go backwards on the goal, and it was a great cross in from Jake Mulroney, but it started. I think it was Anton Walks that started stuff at the back to move everything forward. So. I did not listen to. I was listening to the national broadcast. I did not get to hear, Jason, your reaction to said goal, but
no, there was no squealing in it because it wasn't that kind of a goal. I mean, it didn't line up that way. But I was very forceful with my comments after that, to the point that my throat hurt a little bit, and that's when it was pretty good.
Yes.
No, it was a fun moment. You wish the first 45 had been better, and we'll talk about that. The second 45 was improved. And, and this is something that, John, teams you care about when they get points on the road in games where they didn't play well, it has an extra feeling. Nick, when Milan, rescues a point against Inter in a game where they didn't play well, the feeling you get from that, that's what we love about this, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, this is a different situation I think we've had to deal with since 2017, that Orlando looks competent. Orlando just doesn't look competent. They look dangerous. And so I think it's, that while in 2017, when you had Ricky Kaká roaming the field, you could sit there and say, okay, Orlando can do some things. They can be dangerous. They can have a lightning bolt moment. The difference now is that they look like a team. There were several times that Mueller broke away, and I'm like, he's one-on-one. This is bad news bears, because they have that speed dynamic. They have the ability to string together passes in a coherent fashion like they previously haven't had. Their midfield's not making stupid mistakes like our boy, angry face Will Johnson would make. And when you start removing the stupid mistakes from a team and string it together just in a coherent manner, that team can become dangerous overnight. And I think that's where Orlando is now. But they still have that boogeyman of Atlanta and Exploria that they haven't been able to shake yet. And so they got one in our house. We snuck away with the point there. Adam John, I think I've been pretty straightforward that he wasn't the dude who I wanted brought in. He wasn't the guy who when they said they officially signed him, he went on the goodwill tour on Twitter, and I'm still like, okay, well, I was wrong. The man rescued a point, and I'm just very happy to have that lanky frame, launching himself around toward the end. But the question I have right now is Kubo Torres. He had a couple of moments where it looked like he could have done some damage to them early. The ball's not falling for him yet. Every striker hits that, where that rust, you have to shake away the rust. And sadly, the only thing that really does it is scoring a goal. By, whatever way you want to call it, you must break the rust away. I'm a little nervous about Kubo Torres and his ability to shake the rust. Gentlemen, do you feel the same way?
John, what do you think?
I'm still looking at Kubo Torres as becoming integrated into all this. I know that he had the one hitter, was it 38 seconds into the second half? And I think that it's close, and you're sitting there and you're thinking, all right, there's going to be a chance. And I think that as long as he continues to do his thing and he's out there, I just think that it takes reps, and then he gets that first, and then you see the Kubo that we're all attached to. So I just think that it's just going to continue to take reps, because remember, he hasn't played a whole lot of minutes, period, and he hasn't played 90 minutes back-to-back in how long? Maybe since the Nixon administration at this point. But, I mean, I just think it's going to take time for Kubo to get there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more than patient with it. And Mike Conti had a great observation that he posted on Twitter. When you watch the goal as it was shown on television, look in the low left-hand corner, and Jason, it goes to your point about what games like this mean. You see Glassey's reaction. Glassey jumps into the bottom of the frame twice. That's how excited Glassey was about a moment like this, and it was a really cool thing to see. But I'm of the camp of continue to have Kubo Torres integrate, and he'll be fine.
I can agree with this. Jarrett Smith, what do you think?
What?
He just appears.
Do it
just
live.
appears.
I'll write
I
it.
mean,
and we'll
it's
do
kind
it
of
live.
like, man, I do like Sting did. I drop out the rafters. You know how it goes. You can carry a baseball bat from time to time.
It's true.
Three of his best friends.
I assume we're talking Kubo Torres, and I think because the way the offense has not been clicking, everything's going to be magnified. Whether it's Kubo, it could be Joseph out there. I think at this point, anytime someone puts a shot over from close range, like Kubo had against Miami, or like Manuel Castro had down in Florida during the tournament, anytime something like that happens, we're going to magnify it and look at it. We're going to put it on 5x magnification. We're going to look at it because right now you're just desperate for anything to go in. Adam John, putting one in the 92nd minute was huge, kind of reversing the flow of what you saw against New York in that first game of the MLS's back tournament, where he puts a shot on frame and New York pulls a keeper out of nowhere who manages to make a save on it. And it just kind of felt like an inverse of that situation had come to life, and that's what you were dealing with at that moment. Was, hey, Adam John kind of flipped the script here, but God, somebody just put a shot in the back of the net. I think for me, it also magnifies where you start getting stuff like MLS, where Pro puts out the video the other day about looking at calls, and they look at the boot to Lennon's neck, and at the end of the video, they just kind of say, "Yeah, Pro recommends a penalty here," but I think Nemeth Sagafi was on that game.
Yes.
And he just said, "Nope, didn't see enough there. Not going to look at, not going to flip this around." Where it's just like you're getting everything kind of going against you, and even when stuff kind of goes your way, it doesn't go your way enough. So everything is just magnified. I think Kubo will be all right because he'll keep getting chances, and eventually he'll put them away. But right now, those chances aren't coming as frequently as you want them to as a fan, and so when they don't get put away, that magnifies.
Yeah, that's fair. We got a little bit of this to go with.
Mondays with Reddit.
Fabrizio Romano tweets out about 3 hours ago, the agent of Gonzalo Higuain has arrived in Italy to find an agreement and part company with Juventus. Higuain has received an important bid from Inter Miami, but will decide about his next team only when he'll officially leave Juventus. Does he get out on a free? What do you think, Nick?
I think he will get out on a free. Pirlo wants to start with a clean slate, and he's pushing out the old guard. He's being the change agent right now. They're going to have to pay him some sort of amount to leave. It won't be significant. I think it'll be south of $6 million. But the interesting thing is, don't be shocked if there is a rider in that release that says he can go anywhere but Serie A. I would be shocked if they just sign a blanket release and allow him to go wherever he wants, including Serie A teams. But if the Hamburglar is going to end up in MLS, then yeah, he'll get out on a free. It won't be that much of a payout for Juve's side. I would strongly recommend.
So he's an SEC coach, is what I'm hearing here.
Yes, yeah.
You can go anywhere you want, but in the conference.
That's right. You can go anywhere you want, just don't go within conference. But I, again, have to warn Inter Miami, it would probably be best for you to go in a different direction than the Hamburg.
Not happening. That's the direction they have gone in.
Yeah, I know.
They're already way down the road with that.
Ooh.
That heat and humidity, that man moving around.
Do you want to call it moving around?
No, no. Like,
It's going to be
what
interesting.
6-yard
picturing-
circle
do you
will
remember-
Gonzalo Higuain be spotted in?
So this reminds me of when we were when John was a kid. The vibrating boards where you put the football guys on there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of how he would move around.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Like he's being electrocuted, he moves around that way?
Just kind of bounces and electrocutes himself
just kind,
around.
just
the
kind of
board.
like, and then when you stop moving, that's when the play ends. Was it electrostatic football? Was that it, Jared?
Something like that.
I just remember being called electric football. That's what I remember it being called. But look, the whole thing with Juve is going to be they're going to have to sit down with his agent and essentially find out where he wants to go. And if it's anywhere in Europe to a Champions League, adjacent team, they're going to say, we're going to have to work something out here. But I really don't think that's the case. I don't foresee him going really anywhere else in Europe right now. He's not going to go to Switzerland. He's not going to go, I think, to a Champions League Ligue 1 side. I don't see him having the pace to survive in La Liga. It's going to be MLS more than likely. He'll get out very easily. I want to see what happens with Edson
Cavani.
Cavani.
To survive in MLS, though, man.
What was that?
But does he have the pace to survive in MLS?
No.
Do you trust him getting behind Miles Robinson
No.
and staying ahead of Miles Robinson, or running up and down the field in Miami and Orlando?
No, not at all. The concern, that's why they had to get Matuidi in there, because they're going to have to find somebody who can provide incisive passing to get it to him, because he's going to move in a 6-yard circle. That's it. The 6-yard circle is not a joke. That dude is going to post up on your back line, and he's going to hang out there. Now, he can move and he can accurately put the ball on goal. That's not in question here. The problem is, if you're asking him to do any sort of heavy lifting from the striker position, it's not happening. That's, I think, there were times in that in the Inter Miami game, and I was talking about this in our production thread, that there were times that Matuidi was looking at Breck Shea like, what in God's name are you doing, and why did you go there with the ball? That's going to be – they're going to have to find chemistry very quickly if they bring in Higuain, because I think that's their only path to victory at the moment.
Now, question from Alex Piscine in the Twitch pitch, Nick. Did Ibra have the pace?
Ibra had enough – he certainly had more pace than Higuain. That's for sure. He was certainly in better shape than Higuain as well.
I'll definitely back that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ibra's a freak when it comes to that.
Infinitely better shape than Higuain, better pace than Higuain, and his ability to strike from distance was better than Higuain as well. And also the difference is that whether you like him or hate him outside of the locker room, Zlatan will drag you to wins. It's not going to be – it's not like Michael Jordan dragging you to wins, but you will – there's going to be moments where Zlatan will be the difference in, when the rest of the team's dragging, where he will pull you to victory. I don't see that with Higuain. That's, if we're talking about Napoli level Higuain, sure, yeah, no problem. But when he went to Turin and got involved in the Piedmont food, no, that's not happening.
John, what else stood out to you about Atlanta and Orlando on Saturday?
Let's see. As I sit here and look at my notes, the continued relationship of Anton Walkes and Miles Robinson. Really enjoyed looking at that. Now, this is something that was personal. This was just a personal observation, and it was the once again the inconsistency of Rivas when it came to cards.
I jinxed him. I'll put my hand up and apologize. About the 30th minute, I said he was doing a good job, because he was up to that point. And when I said that, there were a couple bad calls. And first, I think Mike almost fell out of his chair when I said that. But at that point, he was doing fine. He was all right. And then it wasn't so much. The Mendez foul.
Marco got the Johnny Lawrence sweep of the leg.
Yeah, that was the one that was. Well, see, that was early enough, and this is where I got frustrated with Rivas. Is okay, you don't want to throw yellow there, fine. you have to call that the rest of the way. You have to call it in that manner the rest of the way. And he didn't. Yep. And that's where it got loose. And then I think in the last 30 minutes, he just said, forget it. I'm going to go throw my whistle to the sideline, and I'm not going to use it anymore, because he was calling a bunch of fouls. Then he started throwing a bunch of cards. Then he just stopped doing everything. Yep. And you can't have referees that are that inconsistent, because then you don't know how to play. It can't go from, all right, let's set the bar. It's going to be kind of loose. Now it's going to be super tight. Now cards are flying. Now we're not calling a thing.
Yeah.
Like, you can't play in that manner. It affects the match. So it got bad later, but he started out okay, and then it all fell apart for him. I've seen worse, sadly. But it's the same things that we've seen from time to time. I mean, the Escobar yellow was absolutely yellow. There's no question about it.
Yeah,
that was accurate. There should have been a couple. Mendez should have been on a yellow a whole lot sooner. That would have changed some things.
The 41st minute after, it was another tackle, and he didn't get a card after the 41st.
Yeah. DK should have been on a card because he was going in and cleaning center backs out with late challenges. We talked about that on the watch along last night. It got very inconsistent, and that's the worst kind of ref. I don't care if you're going to call it tight or if you're going to let a lot go. Just do it one way or the other and be consistent. That's all I ask. And Rivas was inconsistent in multiple ways in this match. Yeah. It went one way and it went the other way, and it was a very difficult thing to watch at times.
What'd you think of the Lennon yellow in the 79th?
I don't really remember it off the top of my head. Was it a tactical foul?
I didn't think so.
Okay. I'd have to go back and look at it.
Lennon appealed to Rivas, and he was wondering what the call was all about. And I have here, and it led to the set piece from Nani that had the shot off the post.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and see it again. I remember being surprised by the card a lot, but that was in his inconsistent phase. So I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at it.
Is that the one where Lennon got cleaned out and then got the yellow for being cleaned out for the distinct pleasure of being taken out?
I guess behind? It was. Yeah, it would have had to have been.
Yeah, I think that's correct, yeah. But, no, just highlights for me. Enjoyed seeing the continued development of George Bello, liked the relationship with Anton and Miles. The Dom look for Gallagher in the 90th, I thought was, something that we can, look at for Jurgen Damm when he came on for Miles, and you almost went all NASCAR. So there's some things that were there, but a lot of it was on the back line. Then you had the big Gazan save on Mendez in the 35th. So those were the highlights for me. But once again, I'm drawn to Rivas again.
No, and we got to stop doing that. And I know, and there's a question on the referees. We'll get there. But Rivas wasn't the story here. You can't be drawn to Rivas. There's so much more going on in this game than an inconsistent referee. Bernd has a question about that, and I want to get everybody's take on it before we hear Nick and Jarrett's thoughts about the match. Bernd says, and do you get the impression that MLS referees are trying to avoid yellows at beginnings of matches? Do you think that's a league directive, and why? Nick, what do you think? Nick's frozen. Good times.
Yeah.
Jarrett, what do you think?
I don't know if it's like a league directive, but I think it's like a conscious effort from refs to not control the game with yellows. And so we talk about this a lot, the fabled England-Colombia game that Geiger did. But you can control the game without yellows, and I think some of the younger refs aren't there yet where they feel confident controlling the game without yellows for an extended period of time. And then when players figure out that we're not going to get a yellow early in the game for this, then we're going to push our luck, and we're going to know that we can take these edges. And then the ref kind of flips direction super hard, starts handing out yellows, and then you get that wave of inconsistency. So I don't know necessarily that's a league directive. I think it's a conscious effort by some younger refs not to let cards control the game, and then the players kind of try and wrestle the narrative away from him, because especially a veteran player who knows what he's doing is going to recognize that, and the refs kind of over-adjust.
Nick's unfrozen. What do you think about yellow cards early in games in MLS?
They're game changers. When
You think they're being
sitting
told
there
not to throw them?
I would prefer. I'm stuck with this because I'm of two minds about it. One, that if MLS officiating overall was of higher quality, I would say we don't need to throw cards. But the problem is that because MLS is so helter-skelter, with MLS is so helter-skelter that essentially when the first card comes out, it's a wrap. Then at that point, the ref is typically going card happy, and it just changes the entire complexion of the game. So I'm very rarely wishy-washy on things, but this is the one thing that I am wishy-washy on because it speaks to the inconsistency of pro with MLS. That I just feel like there's far more education that needs to be done with these guys because it is so night and day from one ref to the next. I want to see cards early to set a tone to say, hey, look, this is allowed, this is not. But that's in any other league. But with MLS, I would say, no, I don't want cards early because of the stupidity that tends to come with the refs that officiate this league.
I get that. That makes
I don't know
sense.
if that made any sense.
No, I got you. I got you. I think the only thing I would say to it is that in terms of dangerous play that is, potentially creating injuries for players, I want them to throw those cards when they need to. Those are the ones where I get frustrated when they don't throw them, is when players' safety is at risk. That's the issue I have. And the Mendez one was pretty close to that, I thought. That Mendez tackle was pretty nasty.
We had a player take a cleat to the neck, and the ref was like,
that was at the end. Yeah, that's that's a tough one.
Yeah, but that's the stuff that I'm talking about with every other league, even Scotland today. But I feel like every other league has at least they always have a few bad eggs, and I get that they're going to be there. But I feel in this league, the officiating is so night and day from one to the other to the other. I just feel that if you want to ask me what's holding it back MLS, it is not at all. The salary cap is not any of that mess. Yes, Pumpkin. Huh. Hey, you want to say hi to everybody? Come here. Come here, say hi to everybody. All right. It's the officiating. The officiating is a problem. Is the officiating a problem? Yeah? You're going to freeze up now? You came in here like gangbusters, and now you're going to freeze up? So. She's playing hide and
that
seek.
happened to someone other than me.
Right.
Good times.
She's down there. So, yeah, there you go. I'm going to put it on mute really quick while I try to corral this gremlin.
Jarrett, your thoughts on the game Saturday night?
So I've had to go back and watch it because I was in a land where, I had to leave where I was staying to get internet. I had no cell signal and no Wi-Fi. I had to go outside to figure out how to communicate anything. But you know what? No matter what anyone wants to say about it's a game against Orlando and you wrestled a point away from an Orlando team, first off, this isn't the Orlando of the past. Oscar Pereira actually has them functioning like a real team, and it's still kind of weird to me. Not as weird as it was at the tournament down in Orlando. It's still kind of weird. It was nice to see someone show some balls, though, for Atlanta, because sometimes you just got to steal a point. And you're going to have games where it's going to feel like the ship is rocking back and forth. And it feels like when it rocks on you, it's about to capsize. And when it rocks in your favor, it's not rocking as much as you want it to. And, man, sometimes you just got to steal points. And still happy with George Bello, as John said. It's a two-bladed sword, or a double-edged sword, excuse me, with Bello, because people talk about wanting to #play the kids. Well, if you play the kids, you have to understand that the kids are going to have some rough moments. Mm-hmm. It's what happens when you put a teenager out there against adults. You can't pull him off the field and shatter his confidence or get pissy the first time he has a bad moment. Oh, he didn't track back. He's a teenager playing against adults. The game is faster. The game is harder. It hits harder. Everything is quicker. Everything is tougher. You got to just let them have their licks. You let Alphonso Davies have his licks. I get it. George Bella's not an Alphonso Davies realm of the atmosphere. Not trying to say he is. But go look back at his early games when he was playing left back with Vancouver. There are going to be some rough moments. You got to just roll with those. And you got to live with it. You can't do #play the kids and then get pissy and get nervous and pull them every time someone makes a mistake when they're a teenager. You just can't.
No, I agree.
As far as the center back pairing goes, Anton Walkes has taken jumps that I didn't know he had in him from 2017 till now. Now, granted, a lot of those were overseas. Dude.
What's crazy about Walkes is when he was signed, we were following what Portsmouth fans had to say, and there were a lot of Portsmouth fans who were really ragging on Anton Walkes, and he's come in and played a lot of minutes, more minutes than probably was the intention because of a variety of different injuries. He's played quite a few different roles, and he's been really, really good this season. He's a guy who can play as a center back in a 3. He can play as a center back in a 2. He can play as a right back, as we saw in 2017. He can play on the left side, which we saw in the preseason. I think he played on the left as a wing back against Leones Negros in the preseason. He could play left back for you. He played as a holding midfielder over at Portsmouth. So you've got a player who can play anywhere you need on the back line and has had to this season and has done the job to the point that if he's healthy, I think he starts right now. I think he's the guy until proven otherwise right now.
I think he is too. And it's an interesting thing because we talked last week, and I don't know if y'all have talked about it yet, about the offense getting forward. Let the defense do defensive things. This is something you saw in the past, and it's something you see with a lot of teams. I mean, you saw this with Bayern Munich in the Champions League, not to put them in the same conversation with Atlanta and to say that Atlanta's there, but they're going to leave their defense exposed at times. We saw it when they played Lyon, and Lyon had 2 golden opportunities in the first 20 minutes of that game. You're going to give up opportunities when you're getting forward like that. You've got to trust that defense. And I think the defense at this point, you can trust them to do that. You can trust Walkes. You can trust Robinson. Glassy is going to have trust in guys like Lawrence Wyke, who he knows from last year. I know most of this podcast is still a big Lawrence Wyke fan club. You can trust a guy like, we saw George Campbell get opportunities early in the season back in March. And Campbell is kind of in that similar vein. So Miles Robinson, just much more raw. Bit of a meaner streak in him, but you've got guys I want to see him have those opportunities to be in tight situations, see if they can make the play, because you're going to have to, especially as you get forward and kind of swallow any fear you have of getting forward on the ball. Because you're going to have to do it when you go play Miami. I mean, you can't just sit there and you can't just sit there and worry about getting forward and trying to protect the back line against that Miami team when you go play them this week. But I mean, like I said, you're going to steal a point. I thought we'd get a bigger bounce, honestly, when Glass comes in as manager. And this is, I think some of it is you're seeing personally, I think you see a guy like Adam John, who has been with a team that's made a playoff run in Columbus. Remember, he knocks Atlanta out of the playoffs in 2017. He's gone. He's taken that knockdown step to go play in USL and lit it up. And now he's back. He knows what happens if you don't perform at this level. And I think most of these guys do. I'm not saying they don't understand that. But at some point, when it's going a little rough like this and you're just scratching out for points, you gotta dig down. You gotta find something and realize that you're playing for a living. You're playing for your job in some instances. And a couple of guys did that the other night. And I'm not saying the rest of the team isn't trying at all, because I think they are.
Yeah.
And I think it's just not clicking. I think it's just a matter of, it's all the gears in a clock tower, and they're just not synced up right. But the gears there, guys have talked about, there's too much talent here not to be winning games. So it's just a matter of, can you get there? And can you kind of hold serve until you get there? Because there's enough talent on this team that, hey, you make the playoffs, you can be as dangerous as anyone in the league with the talent you have and with the depth you have more than anything coming off the bench. But you're going to have to grind out some games like that where a couple guys are going to you're going to have nights where you're going to have a couple guys have to show some balls and go, steal a point late. It happens.
You keep using that phrase. Did you watch All or Nothing episode 4, I think? Because Jose Mourinho is using that quite a bit.
I'm ready to binge it, though. I need to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it.
Sometimes you just got to be a bastard, though.
Yeah, you do.
We're going to keep using those terms.
You do. It's making me like Jose Mourinho, and a lot of the things he's saying you are echoing at the moment when he came into Spurs. I want to get into some of the questions from the Twitch pitch because we got quite a few, and I want to kind of bounce around a little bit on this. We're going to talk a lot more about this in the morning as well. So I want to get Jarrett and Nick's thoughts on some of the things from the match. Jason Nix asked, and Nick, you go first. Did Atlanta play that much better in the second half, or did Orlando take their foot off the gas and fall back?
I think Atlanta played that much better in the second half. I think when Dom came in, that really that changed things. It offered a dynamic that I don't think Orlando was particularly prepared for. It looked to me as though Atlanta started very sloppily in the first half and pulled it together in the second half. I did not think that a goal was coming for Atlanta. Just by the way that they were playing, the challenges that they were having in the final third, I didn't think that was going to be happening. But I was happy to be proven wrong. I have no challenge with that. But I really, really, really want Jurgen Damm fully match fit and involved with this squad, because when he's in there, it's an X factor from a speed perspective. And I know the joke has always been his crossing ability, but his ability to be a game changer, I think, has been put on full display. So I want to see what happens with him outside of just 20 minutes here, 30 minutes there. I want to see a full game.
Following along that thread, Ropes asks, and Jarrett, what do you think? Dom, do you think he gets the start on Wednesday?
If he's healthy, I think he does. If he's 90 minutes fit, he's dynamic enough, and it's kind of that. Let's drop this back to like the Dennis Schroeder syndrome or the Dwayne Wade syndrome, when Dwayne Wade was like shooting threes at like a 29% clip, like a dude like shooting out of the park bench. You got to play off of Dom because you can't let him beat you with speed. So you kind of have to give him the room and invite him to play that cross. You got to kind of give him that space. I think it creates a bit more space for everybody else because you're kind of keeping a weather eye on him. The same vein with a guy like Mulroney in the last like 20 minutes of a game when you can have him run at tired teams. You just got to give him a little more space. And I think it kind of it loosens things up a bit.
Mulroney was good in this one as a left back, which was another kind of surprise in some of the moves that we saw.
I'm telling you, folks sleeping on Jake Mulroney. Don't look at what he did. Don't look at what he did at Hearts. Hearts is
don't look at anything anybody did at Hearts. No, that's bad.
Yeah.
Ask these guys as I updated them on Scotland's turmoil in the spring. Hearts is a tire fire.
Yeah, Hearts.
I never trust anything anyone did at Hearts.
Thank you, N. Budge.
Look, if you're Inter Miami and Orlando or Nashville, and you're looking at this Atlanta team, I mean, really, the MO right now is you must score within the first 30 minutes. To score in the first 30 minutes, because when the second half comes and they start putting in the speed demons, there is nothing worse as a defender, as a defensive midfielder, when you're tired and you know where to go, but you're a half step slower and you see a faster guy about to sub in, like the guy who just has burners deck. That is a problem. Yeah, and so if you're Atlanta, I think you really need to focus on keeping a clean sheet for the first 30 minutes. I know that may sound stupid, but just keep it for the first 30 minutes and long enough to find your rhythm, because this looks like a team that takes about 30, 45 minutes to get into rhythm, and then they're A-okay. But that first 30 to 45 minutes, it could be a killer with the right team, especially if Inter Miami goes and signs Gonzalo Higuain and he puts one or two past you in the first 20 minents.
At least it'll take a minute for him to get
Pizarro
here.
looks like a man on an island right now, but it just, to me, if Inter can somehow squeeze their way into a goal early on, Wednesday could be a bit problematic.
Okay, here's another one. you guys saw what Stephen Glass said, Ezequiel Barco said as he was coming off the match, because you could see Barco yelling towards the bench.
Right.
Glassy today, media availability, he said that Barco said, "We're trying to win the match here." And Glass said, of course. He kind of understood that because he was trying to do the same thing. Jason Nix said that Glassy has Barco on a minutes limit. And Shiva chimed in the Twitch pitch and said, "I think Glassy is doing to Barco what Tata did to Joseph." Remember when Tata would pull Joseph late in matches, and it was conserving him, because that was at that time, late in the 2017 season, when you were playing a schedule like this, where you were playing midweek, weekend, midweek, weekend. And Barco has already missed minutes, due to a knock. So how do you feel about that situation where you're having to manage the minutes of Barco? Are you okay with that, or do you lean to basically the way Barco's feeling about it? Just keep playing as much as you can play.
I think you have to manage your minutes now, and I hate pitch counts. I really do, and I hate NBA load management games. Player X's being missing this game because of load management. But honestly, I would rather have guys be pulled 20, 25 minutes before they want to be pulled, with the idea that when it comes down to, that razor wire finish, if you're team 9, team 10, and you're just outside trying to get in, I would rather have that full complement of players readily available. Because if you don't, and again, it's a stupid meme that I saw circulating Facebook, but it is what it is. There's a little bit of wisdom in it. If you don't, take time for your health now, you will be forced to take time for illness later. And if you don't take time now to preserve your players and spare them those extra minutes, you will be forced to deal with wear and tear injuries when it counts. And that's something I don't think Atlanta wants to deal with right now.
The one thing I would say, and Jason Nix in the Twitch pitch says, he's 19. If he's hurt, that's
19.
one thing.
He's 19 after a start and stop with a season, and they had an intense period with the MLS's back tournament. He got knocked. He missed some time. He's back. It is a long season, and 19 or not, that wear and tear will build up. I mean, he's 19 years old, but at the same time, based on wear and tear, they age in dog years, man.
Where I'm at with it, and Nick's, the thing that I would say that we don't know is I don't think Stephen Glass is just deciding I don't want to play Ezequiel Barco more than 60 minutes. I think your sports science department has some say here and is measuring different elements of output and what he's been able to do in training. And he's a guy who's had injuries. He's a guy who's had injury issues.
If I could chime in on the sports science side a bit. There was a time 2 years ago where, in conjunction with Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, they had a thing where it was like MLS player for a day.
Yeah.
You plop down some cash, you go up to the training facility, and essentially you're an Atlanta United player for a day. It's wonderful. And if you have the means, I highly suggest you try to make that happen in a COVID-free world. But they brought in all the different groups from a team leadership, marketing, and the sports science side, and even the video and coaching side to help give you an idea of what these players go through. And they wouldn't show us the specifics, obviously, on the sports science side, but it's not just like 2 or 3 key metrics that decide how much a player plays and what that workload is. It's about 15 to 20 to 25 markers that each player has to hit that dictates that player load. And the spreadsheet per player, like condensed down, was like this on an Excel spreadsheet. It was absolutely mind-bending. And in my opinion, it was the most interesting part of the entire day when you realize how much data goes in to who plays when and how. It's absolutely nuts to watch. And if I believe the guy who runs their sports science department has a book out. If I'm
he does.
I'm going to pick that up because the guy is just an absolute wealth of knowledge. But it's something to consider whenever we talk about when players come in and go out and load management.
I think Bernd has a good point here too, and I do think this is a sports science situation. I absolutely think that's what it is. I think you're managing his minutes because of the amount of minutes you have to play the rest of the week. But Burns says, I worry about guys like Barco feeling the players have the power now after FDB was let go. And that is also a big part of where things are at the moment. You do have to manage that. You do have to balance that. And I don't think the players got FDB let go or mutually agreed upon leaving, whatever you want to call it. I don't think the players did that solely, but obviously it played a role. I don't think there's any way to say that it didn't. And you do have to manage that situation, because if that is what happens consistently at a club, the club's not going to have success. That's just a fact. We've seen this at many clubs over the years.
Yeah. Keep in mind that there are guys like Jeff Lorenowitz on this roster who...
Good point.
I really... Barco may be a bad man, but I can tell you, I'm not going against Uncle Jeff when it comes to, 5 knuckles on Friday. Jeff, to me, looks like he can throw. And, Jeff, he's lanky, man. He has the reach. I mean, he could just jab Barco to death if he wanted to. Me and Barco about the same size. We're 5'5". So fighting tall, lanky guys is never something we really endeavor to make a regular thing. But I as far as the players getting too much pull, I don't necessarily. I can see where Burns coming from on that, but I really think that in this situation, it's purely sports science. He gets a report that says, we recommend you pull player X by this time, if results allow. And, 1-0 game, okay, yeah, we could probably pull him.
I think what jumped out to me, and Jared, I want to get your take on this before we wrap up with some different odds and ends. In All or Nothing, when you guys haven't watched it and you get caught up on it, episode 4, which is the last one I saw, was getting into the festive fixtures in England, which is one of the dumbest things imaginable to put players through this. And any manager worth their salt would argue this and fight it, and it needs to be stopped. I don't care about the stupid tradition. When you're playing 2 games in 48 hours, you're being stupid. Yeah. Really, really stupid. And what happens? Harry Kane tears his hamstring almost off the bone, and he's going to be out for 12 weeks. That's what happens. 75 injuries was something that came up in this. And you're going to have these injuries. What is MLS doing right now? They're playing not quite that extreme of a compressed schedule, but a compressed schedule. And you've got to manage those minutes. Jarrett, Scotland, which you follow closely, do they do the festive fixtures and stuff? And do you see a number of injuries as you get into that phase of the season?
Not as much. They're busy trying to kill each other, 2 times a week on the field in games that count. And then you've got, what League of Nations Cup going on as well. I think it's going to cut down on a lot of that stuff, especially in Europe, where you have more competitive, more compact schedule for the league, but not just that, but for the national teams as well. And I get some national teams might take it more seriously than others. You still get called in possibly more often, and for games that you have to, you might get dictated by a manager who says, oh, we're going to take this seriously. Or a manager says, we're going to be like the Czechs today when they played Scotland. And it's kind of a slapdash lineup. They still scored on Scotland inside of 5 minutes, but that's neither here nor there. And so I think the pickup on League of Nations is going to cut down on this a bit. But I think the publication of stuff like that, where you have Harry Kane tear his hamstring off, is going to contribute to these going away. Because we have more knowledge on sports science, you have more leverage now as and this happens in all sports, but as player salaries go up, you're not just looking at a guy who plays on my club team. You're looking at a multi-million-dollar investment, and you're going to protect those investments. So I hope you'll see a push to kind of push this off to the side of, hey, we're not going to take this as seriously. We're not going to do it at all, or it's just going to be reserve guys who go take part in it. Because guys are investments nowadays. It's been going that way for a while. They've been investments for a while. But as the bubble gets bigger and bigger with contracts and salaries, they're more of investments. You can't just throw them away on a festive fixture. That's asinine, and it's stupid as far as if I was managing a club, I'd tell them to kick rocks. I need these guys to win trophies because my job depends on it. Their contracts depend on it. This isn't 1965.
No. It's not. We got this.
Mondays with Reddit.
This is absolute madness, and I didn't see it earlier. It posted midday today. Antoine Griezmann to Manchester United is back on. Possibly. Maybe.
Okay.
The position after Lionel Messi, after Messi-gate, at least for now, has him staying at Barcelona. Now Griezmann's position is, quote, vulnerable. And what could make it really go down is Barcelona going back to Inter, which they have reportedly, according to lots of different sources, to talk about Lautaro Martinez in a ploy to get Messi to stay not just for one more year, but long term. And if they could do that, then they would move Griezmann to Manchester United. But the backup plan for Ronald Koeman, because all of this is nuts, is Memphis Depay going to Barcelona. And they're trying to get Wijnaldum from Liverpool. And this is all craziness, Nick. This is all in The Guardian. Like, this isn't complete madness with random people on Reddit having fever dreams. Like, this is
right.
at least being talked about in real terms.
It's
That's a lot, I know.
I'll start with the Inter side of the deal with Lautaro Martinez. That's a move that has been talked about since the midpoint last season. They talked about Barcelona's interest in him, and the biggest issue was going to be the release clause and whether or not they were going to pay the $100 million or whether they were going to try to get it down to like 70 or 60 plus a player to be named. That's going to be the most interesting part of this, because Inter is in a position where they don't have to sell. Financially, they're A-OK right now. And if you saw the issues with Tonali and they said, well, we don't want to necessarily mess with spending that kind of money. The issue with them is not that they don't have the money to pay for him. They just don't want to do anything that even smells like a rebuild right now. They want to compete and win Serie A. They believe they have an opportunity to do that this year. It will take Barcelona coming in at 90 to 100 million to get Lautaro Martinez out, because there's blood in the water in Serie A right now. With Juve hiring Pirlo and essentially what all looks like a rebuild for them, if you want to call it a rebuild, a soft rebuild, I guess is the term. Inter thinks that they can pull this off. So Barcelona's going to have to bring cash, and the number one way they could do that is by selling Griezmann to do it. If they could sell Griezmann and get that cash, they can pour it into getting Lautaro Martinez. It's the only way that deal is getting done. Griezmann, to Man U, outside of benefiting Pogba, I mean, I outside of Atletico, where you had a real taskmaster working that team, I don't see him necessarily working in the Prem. I don't know if his work ethic is going to get him there. I don't know if his playing style is going to get him there. I just don't foresee that kind of success if he moves to Man U. That it may just be me throwing stuff at a wall, but the key to this is going to be Lautaro Martinez and whether Inter decides to budge at all on that release.
Okay, we're going to finish with a possible new segment. We're going to see how this goes. And we're also going to see how the theme song choice goes.
Okay.
We're going to try this one.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
I like it.
Are you ready to clown around? Wait for the Peanut and Molly. I'll climb her dolly.
I think I know who this is about.
No, it's not about that, John. You would be wrong. The theme that we're going to finish the show with, and we'll see if this becomes something that sticks. What was your favorite thing in your soccer world in the past week? Jarrett, what was your favorite thing that happened in the soccer world in the last week?
Oh, the continued. This is purely Schadenfreude, and I know we endorse Schadenfreude in this environment.
Sure.
This is a safe space for Schadenfreude. LAFC
Man, that's just mean.
going down 3-0, including Sebastian Leggett getting on the unicycle
Oh, the side volley.
and putting it away, and then the pettiness from the Galaxy.
Oh, that was great.
Man,
That was tremendous.
so Atlanta loses one of probably what they lose the best striker in the league, and things haven't been great, but they haven't been hammer blow to the head twice by your rival in 2 weeks bad, and your only win really has been against a team that you've owned who really doesn't look great right now in San Jose. But man, the Galaxy just taking LAFC behind the woodshed with a shotgun. Like, holy yeller.
I should have known better than to ask Jarrett first, because I was really like being genuine with what was your favorite thing. I thought it'd be, like a nice segment to end the show on a positive note, and Jarrett goes old yeller on us.
It's the Shawn Michaels Ric Flair promo.
Jarrett.
Oh,
Little Timmy holding the shotgun.
Just take
Jarrett.
Bob Bradley's out there talking about the rabbits. Yep, them some pretty rabbits. Keep talking about the rabbits, Bob. We're going to go out to the Salinas River. We're going to go out to the Salinas River, Bob, and go look at some rabbits.
Oh, you did not. Oh,
Jarrett.
man.
Jarrett
Oh, man,
_
I forgot
Smith
about-
for your scorn and anger and things. Nick, what was?
You're not going to hurt me anymore.
I know.
I'm not
I know.
talking about tearing things down. I'm talking about building things up.
Okay.
And I'm going to cut my promo for AC Milan. You're talking about Tonali, Bakayoko. You're talking about Brahim coming in. Baby, we're talking about building things back up. It is a monster on the rise. Milan signing player after player. We're talking alligator shoes. We're talking a $15,000 Rolex. We're talking about the biggest house on the biggest hill on the biggest side of town. And ladies and gentlemen, you get yourselves lined up and you come to room 403 at the Marriott. Drinks, anything you want is going to be on the World Heavyweight Champion.
Okay.
Yeah, we wanted what I was happy about. That's what I'm happy about. Don't criticize my happiness.
No. This is just going all over the map. This is weird.
It's supposed to. That's what we do.
Okay.
Well, I'm talking about building, baby. Positivity.
John,
There's enough
what was your
negativity in
favorite
2020.
thing in the soccer world in the last week?
Gibraltar and San Marino in Nations League, and it has
Why?
nothing to do with the result. It has to do with the location of the Gibraltar National Soccer Stadium.
In
It
Gibraltar?
was next to the national airport, and during the match, you got to see the 747s taken off within the shot away from the stadium. It was like if you were near what is it, JFK or LaGuardia? Which one's near Shea Stadium and Citi Field? LaGuardia. So it's like if you were next door to LaGuardia and the game's going on and you're looking off to your left and you're seeing these big old planes just taking right off in the middle of the action. It was one
So
of the
it's
best
like San
visuals.
Jose.
Oh, yeah. But there was no curfew. They were taking off all day long.
That's right. Frequent
Jason,
flyer miles, baby.
Yeah.
Nice.
Would
what
you
happens
like
when you
a
wear
more
masks.
serious? Would you like a more serious answer, real quick, inside of 5 seconds?
Sure, Jarrett. Who's dying now?
No one, actually. If you want me to be optimistic inside of 5 seconds, go. Tab
Go.
Ramos has Houston playing really well, and it's really awesome to see and really fun to see for that market and that team.
Okay, we'll take that. The Twitch pitch has chimed in on this. ATL Leone says that Zlatan trashing Sweden for losing to the World Cup champs was his favorite thing that happened in the last week. And Zlatan on Twitter said after Sweden lost to France, "What a damn joke. Further proof, incompetent people in the wrong positions smothering Swedish football."
If you take out the Swedish football part, it basically reads like a mean tweet about U.S. soccer, but, go off.
Yeah. Bernd enjoyed the NWSL game, even without the national team players. Yeah. Katie Weaver enjoyed Adam John shushing 350 Orlando fans. And obviously lots of enjoyment of Adam John and his performance and everything. Alex Pacine, the U.S. women's national team subtweet, appreciate excellence with Becky Sauerbrunn. That was Alex's favorite thing. That was an awesome tweet from the USWNT.
Yep.
4-card, favorite thing, Messi clowning the board and president of Barca. That was epic.
True.
That was
yes. Wearing flip-flops, baby.
So epic. I mean, he needed the mate as well, but yeah, that was good. That was bold because he turned it all back around on Barca in one interview, and it was amazing. Everybody likes your very dark worldview, Jarrett. 4-card has jumped on the Milan train, Nick, so you're happy with that.
There you go.
My favorite thing is I've gotten into, since I don't have my Argentine league to watch right now, on Fanatis, fntz.co/soccer down here. If you're not a subscriber, you can get that 7-day free trial, and it still benefits the show. You can go watch the Ecuador Serie A. And I've watched a few games just to kind of get a sense of it. Some good talent in Ecuador, and at good prices, too, by the way, if you're looking for players for U22 initiatives and other things. Really good deals in Ecuador. But I found a new favorite club in Ecuador. I haven't had a club in Ecuador. I got one now. They are a fairly new club. They were founded in 2003. Mushuk Runa. Doesn't sound very Ecuadorian, but they are also known as El Panchito. So I tuned into the match. They were playing, funny enough, Barcelona of Ecuador, and they have a very similar logo. They were all yellow, too. I mean, whatever. I guess it works. Barcelona is one of the big teams in Ecuador. But Mushuk Runa, when I tuned in, they had already had a red card. I got there in time for the second half. They're a man down. They're a goal down. Normally, in that case, I think they were on the road. There's no fans in the stands right now in Ecuador. But you're on the road. You're a man down. You're already a goal down. You're probably starting to think, like, we don't want to get blown out here. Mushuk Runa is like a bottom half table team, right about in the middle in Ecuador. Mm-hmm. They were playing the, I think, pretty rarely seen 3-3-3 formation.
There you go.
They were going for it. They had a free kick in about the 72nd, 73rd minute. Goalkeeper comes up to take it, which is always good. And the goalkeeper is a 36-year-old Argentine, Ivan Brun, who has played for maybe every lower division team in Argentina and a few who have probably folded by now. His CV is rather lengthy. He barely missed on the free kick. He came back up again with a corner in stoppage time, and he nearly got on the end of it. Mushuk Runa ended up not getting the result, but they were the ones in control of this game, a man down, and it was a lot of fun to watch. So I have a new Ecuadorian club, El Panchito, Mushuk Runa. That's what I love about Fanatis. You find random teams and random players. Now I want to see how my 36-year-old goalkeeper, Ivan Brun, does. And the announcer for Goal TV in English, which they have English and Spanish on Fanatis, the guy in English is great. And he kept yelling about the number 10, Juan Jose Govea, who's played for some bigger clubs. He's moved over to Mushuk Runa this season. He just kept calling every time he got in the ball. He's like, JJ, JJ, JJ. I love it. Absolutely love it. It was a lot of fun. I recommend the Ecuadorian Serie A.
All right, there we go. 4-card had one that he sent in a while ago that I want to make sure that we throw out there because as we close it out. So the pity move now official. Does Lopez take his roster spot and international spot until a new DP is signed? If new DP is Jonathan Gonzalez, he won't need an international spot, obviously.
Would need the roster spot, though.
Would need the roster spot.
Yeah, and that's where it gets tricky. You could right now, if you wanted to, go ahead and get Eric Lopez on the roster. You've got the mechanism to do it now. You have a roster spot. He would not, I don't think, take up a designated player spot. You have the international slot. So you could do that if you wanted to. If you wanted to add somebody else, then you would need another senior roster spot. But right now you have an open international slot, an open DP slot, and an open senior roster slot.
Can you pull any strings with Atlanta United to get Wolf and an Atlanta United employee to dress up as the Wolfman and Donna and do knockoff gallery furniture ads on atlutd.com? That's a personal favorite.
Really like this idea. I am a big fan of the Wolfman and Donna. Rest in peace, Wolfman. And I would be all about honoring those guys.
Eels can we just show these to Darren Eels with no prompt and just film his reaction?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that could be arranged.
Okay. That's what I'm saying. I think it could be done. And just like, when you come out to watch Atlanta play Miami, ask for the Wolfman, and then look, see?
Hey, ask for the Wolf.
I'm just saying, I think there's marketing potential here, guys. Soccer over there for all the marketing and scouting needs. We're scouting Ecuador now. We're scouting all these crazy leagues. We're the vanguard of sports entertainment.
I believe Gallery Furniture is still open. I believe
there's one in Gainesville, I think.
Yeah, there's
That's
one
right.
in College
Brownsbridge
Park.
Road in Gainesville, sir.
Yeah,
That's correct.
College Park as well, and I believe Donna still is involved.
You know what their website URL is? AskForTheWolfman.com.
Awesome.
I'm telling you, the marketing writes itself. It can be done. We can make it happen.
Okay, I like this idea. I really like this idea. We'll have to see what we can come up with.
All right, there we go.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us tonight. We appreciate it. Hopefully you learned a couple things about the Premier League. Hopefully you found a home for some squirrely juice boxes. We will talk about everything that happened in MLS over the weekend. Tomorrow morning, we will talk about Atlanta, Orlando. If you have some takes, you can send them to us. We will get into that. We'll start to look ahead a little bit to Wednesday, but we'll preview that on Wednesday morning. It is a busy, busy week in SDH land. Nick, Jarrett, thanks for hanging out. That was fun. Except for Jarrett.
So much fun. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Bring some positivity to the party.
Yeah, Jarrett.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks, Jarrett.
I'm going to have nightmares now. Thanks. Appreciate it.
God. My daughter recommends these two books. She told me to show these. She calls everyone on a computer my coworker.
Well, yeah.
So she said, show these to your coworker. It is Baby Faces and my Shimmery Fun Time book. So I'm doing as I'm told because all good dads listen to their daughters. There you go.
100%. Send us home, Nick.
All right. Until next time, thanks so much for tuning in. It is Soccer Over There for Jason, John, Jarrett, and myself. Mucha, mucha Euro, y'all.